Most people think.
Hello and welcome to this breaking news episode of What Most People Think, and it is very rare. First up, I wasn't even supposed to be doing a breaking news episode this week because the Patreons had their monthly Patreon only episode yesterday, so it's supposed to be a down week for that, but then the news. And it's very rare that we lead on anything other than politics on this show, but some stories are so big. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor getting nicked on his birthday. That almost sounds like a football chant, doesn't it? You're getting nicked on your birthday. Get nicked on your birthday. I mean, it was a huge moment. Was it big enough to count as, do you remember where you were that day? I don't know. Those moments are few and far between. They can be a bit aggravating as well because no one really cares where you were. People always say that, don't I? Remember like 9/11, I used to do a routine on it actually. People go, 9/11, remember I was that day? They go, well, where were you? Unless you were in fucking New York, I don't give a shit. I was dropping my kids off at karate. Don't care. But yeah, I would say when that notification came up on my phone, you know, unless it's like invades, I mean, even then it would probably need to be that Britain was being invaded. So it was a huge moment. But there was also politics this week to catch up on. Labour government had a Monday and a Tuesday from hell. There was so much going on, U-turns, unemployment up. But, you know, maybe they've partially benefited from the Andrew arrest peace dividend for them. But we'll chat about where they're at and also a surprise windfall in terms of tax receipts. And then Reform announcing their shadow cabinet. And let's just be clear, straight out of the gate, you cannot have a shadow cabinet until you are the main opposition. You're getting a little bit ahead of yourself. But, you know, I do wonder if as a press sort of junket, it did work out okay for them. Piss take prices. And these are coming in. I did ones in last week's show. I'll probably do some more in the main show. I would just say that, you know, please email me whatmostpeoplethinkuk@gmail.com. Also, if you're a patron, you can get, you know, you have a direct line to me. I would say with the hotel ones, the price of hotels, I mean, maybe I'm being a bit blanket with this, but the price of, like, somebody says to me like £4.30 for a mini tube of Pringles. I don't know, like, there's this filter of hotels are gonna fleece you. I suppose that is still quite expensive. A tenner, maybe. It's got to apply the piss take prices principle of shame, which is that it's got to make you go, it's got to make you gasp. And I don't know, £4.50 for Pringles does make me gasp. Tenner for a small tube of Pringles, that would make me gasp. New patrons, remember, if you're a patron, you get the podcast early, ad-free, and with bonus content. You also get occasional offers of free tickets to radio records and also Jeff Norcott and Friends gigs when they come around. And if you're a VIP patron, you get a guaranteed answer in the monthly Patreon-only episode. So if you go to Patreon to sign up, search for What Most People Think, or just search for Jeff Norcott. It is better for us creators if you do it via Patreon or an Android site. But if Apple Music or Apple Podcasts is the only way you can do it, by all means, do it like that. We've got a few, so thanks very much. We'll go through him. Alex B. That's quite a cool name, isn't it? Alex B. Are you a DJ, Alex B? DJ Alex B, playing D&B in the place to be. Alex B. May or when you grew up, was there an Alex something else and he just got to be Alex and you had to be Alex B, and God, it fucking infuriated you. Even when the teachers would say, is Alex B here? I'm Alex A. In my mind anyway. Paul Scoging. Or Scogging? No, it'd be Scoging. Scoging just sounds like a verb, an old-fashioned verb for something. Scoging for attention. or in a weird sport, like a weird, like lacrosse or something, you could get a red card for scoging, which means like you're pulling your opponent's pubes. Simon Rain, welcome back, Simon Rain. I believe you're a returning patron, or maybe Patreon just kicked you out, as it sometimes, or when your bank card. Remember, if you're a patron and you're suddenly not getting content, and you're thinking, what happened to all that? Is that if your bank card expires, you know, they will just boot you out. Hopefully, they send you a reminder or tell you, but do have a look into that. It's good to have you back, Simon Rain. Ruth Louis. That's one of those names that just has, like, could it have? Yeah, almost sounded like Chandler there, but could your name have any less letters? Ruth, 8 letters for a name. Can anybody do better than that? I'm imagining if your name's Ian, and imagining maybe some Chinese names could go lower than that, but 8 letters, who can top that? give me a shout. Oh my God, that sounded so FM radio. Okay, give us a shout if you could do any less letters than Roof Louie. Okay, next up, we're going to be playing The Saturdays. Phil Ballantyne. That's just a cool name, isn't it? Ballantyne. Phil Ballantyne. Phil Ballantyne is the kind of guy I think is really good at squash. He's stuck with squash. You know, he's still physically very fit. Phil Ballantyne, oh my God, the geezer's fit as a fiddle, fit as a butcher's stock. And even while people are playing all this paddle shit, what has happened to squash in the age of paddle? Oh my God, the squash players, they must be like, like when DJs went from vinyl to digital, the squash players, you must look down your noses at those paddle pricks. Let me know, are you a squash player who's stuck with it despite basically it being kind of obsolete?
What most people think.
The thank you is, the tour shows continue to be just the most fun that I've ever done. Derby I did on Wednesday back at the Derby Theatre there. Is Derby a friendly place particularly? Because I can remember going to football matches there in the 80s and it didn't seem that friendly. But I don't know, the mines are still being shut then, weren't they? Yeah, you had your issues back then. But now you're working sedentary office jobs, your testosterone's gone down. Maybe the men are nice. But Derby, and it was such a nice, that's twice I've done Derby on a Wednesday on successive tours, both times belting. And the accent as well, I can't quite do it, the East Midlands accent. What about it? About, that's the key word to it, isn't it? But are there any other key words to doing an East Midlands accent? But I really enjoyed the gig. Also, Salford on Thursday last night. Wow, what a gig that was. That's the thing, right? So there was about 440 people there, which is pretty much capacity. And I know that there'll be comics that like Romesh will go and do like arenas. The John Bishops of this world, your Bishops, your Ranganathans. So I don't know what it does to their head, but for me, just driving there going, my God, there's 400 fucking Northern monkeys who bought tickets for my show. I felt like this incredible gratitude. And I just went out there and just tried to go all killer, no filler, like the Jimmy Carr principle, just fucking hammer it, for the 90 minutes or whatever it was I was on stage with an interval. And I should say as well that people, if you're still sitting there thinking, I like his podcast, but I don't really want to go to the shows because I just don't know what the clientele would be like. Firstly, give your head a wobble. Come on, man. The clientele, if I showed you a screenshot, a photo of the punters last night, and I said to you, that's a Sarah Pascoe show or that's a Milton Jones show, you wouldn't know the difference, all right? Maybe mine skews a little bit more male, maybe it's a little bit older, but trust me, I don't know if people, I still get people asking me, I think they think there's going to be these fucking string vest wearing knuckle draggers at my shows. I just don't get that. It's a touring crowd, so come along. You will be very welcome and comfortable in your little Lib Dem sandals. The fuck you. Well, this is classic bloke thing. And I realise it's been so long since I've talked about male mental health stuff, and I realise I just lost a couple of listeners. Just stick with it, all right? I'll try and make it funny, but I took my son out, and I mentioned this on the Patreon only. I took my son out on Tuesday and just had such a great day. I just, incredible. And to spend time with them, it's a real blessing with your kids when you just get to hang out and completely connect with them. And then, of course, I did that bloke thing of going, I've missed too much, been working too hard, I've missed out on this, I've missed out. And I started spiraling, thinking because he was so grateful, I was to the point where, sorry, have I fucked up here? Should I have done this more? I just, I have an inability to just enjoy the moment as a general point. And then I was getting in my head going, right, that's it, this tour done, I'm going back to teaching. And my wife, she has to deal with this. I quit comedy maybe twice a year, theoretically, to return to teaching. Not because I hate comedy, I love comedy, but just to have more time at home. And and I'm that's it. But I'm going back to teaching. It's an absolute pipe dream. There are most people sitting there thinking of quitting teaching to do comedy, and I'm thinking about it the other way around. That's my dream. One day I'm going to stick that tweed jacket back on. Okay, let's get into the subjects. And of course, the first big subject this week has to be the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew. So like I say, huge moment, huge news all around the world. It was interesting because I listened to a few news podcasts and they'd done montages of how it was reported all around the world, and it's a bit like a film, you know. First off, you start with the States. They always do, don't they? So in Britain now, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor has been arrested, and then, you know, you go through another English-speaking country, the Aussies going, Prince Andrew was arrested at his Norfolk home. Sorry, Andrew, because it takes longer to reach there because they're upside down. And then you go through the other, like, you know, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and then other accents, which is probably not wise for me to do. And it was like a movie. And you know what I thought? And there's a lot of people, and I'll come back to this, but about the idea that Britain's been embarrassed, I was so proud. I was like, we've still got it. We've still got it. We have still got the capacity to lead the global news cycle, right? If one of our royals gets nicked or died, we're leading that news cycle. Go Britain. Yes, it's not for great reasons, but still, people still give a shit, right? And of course, we have to say he denies any wrongdoing. Now, when I do my Times radio show every Friday, if you want to tune in, you have to say that he denies any wrongdoing. He denies any wrongdoing. Just have to say it so often. We know. I mean, maybe that should be his new name, you know, because Mountbatten Windsor's, that's a mouthful anyway. Why not just have Andrew denies any wrongdoing? And, you know, there was that famous photo very quickly of him doing the rounds. I mean, the photographer that got that must have been fucking made up, you know what I mean? Just holding that camera up, flashing in, and then you get him looking. I mean, it was a hard photo to look at in some ways, just looking so like just a silver ghost-like man and in shock. And it reminded me of that sort of meme where, you know, they take the piss out of the setup to a lot of Netflix shows that will use that structure of saying, you're probably wondering how I got in this position, and then work back from there. And yeah, we are wondering how you got in this position, Andrew, because, you know, all the benefits, as I say, you know, denies any wrongdoing. He's only been arrested, hasn't been charged. As I'm recording this, he hasn't been charged. But it is astonishing. You know, people saying like, oh God, can we move on? Why are we discussing this? And the guy is still in the line of succession, which is incredible in itself. He was once second in line to the throne, and you just think, how far can he fall? I mean, the fact he was second in line, he must have thought, if you were second in line to the throne, right? Obviously, until old Charlie boy popped out a couple of sprogs, he was probably thinking like, you know, I wouldn't say he wished there any ill will on his brother, but it'd probably run through his head. You know, if that happened, this happened. You know, Charles got a complicated love life. My family has had the odd abdication over such things. It's not beyond reasonable doubt that I could one day be the monarch of this state. So it would have played on his mind. It would have crossed his mind that he could one day be king. And I don't think that's going to happen now. Hot take on what most people think. And it was interesting, you know, looking at the old Bill going in there. And I just have a hunch, like with Andrew, never been the brightest. Whatever there is, if there is anything that's of interest to the police, I would imagine it was lying around, right? Probably with a fucking label of it, a label on it saying, probable interest to the cops. And this is, of course, boom time for the Republicans, isn't it? Because that's always their thing. They love just saying, you know, abolish the monarchy. I imagine it's one of those left-wing type sentiments that feels very exciting to say, because it's genuinely radical, isn't it? Abolish the monarchy. And it's certain that they haven't got the support that they had, you know, who has? Journalists, fucking politicians, everything's on the slide. Actors. Who does have the respect that they used to have? But anyway, a lot of people are saying, you know, it's embarrassed Britain. And I was like, I don't know. On the issue of whether or not it's embarrassed Britain, this affair, I'm not sure. Because if you look at, like, the Epstein files in the States, right, there are no significant consequences there. And I see that Bill Gates has dropped out of a few things. You know, Donald Trump seems to think you can just kind of go, right, it's all out there, let's move on. And I don't know, like, yeah, for a guy that was once second in line to the throne to be arrested just like a normal person, there's a lot of people that felt kind of oddly proud, going, yeah, no one is above the law. I mean, it was a great moment for Starmer, who, by the way, just fucking made up generally that this has happened. This is an absolute godsend to the Prime Minister, isn't it? Someone else's problem. Nobody is above the law. He could say that like some sort of weird fucking mortgage insurance salesman looking superhero. You know, and they say that, you know, nobody's above the law, but if he does get charged, let's see who his solicitors are, because, you know, no one's above the law, but the kind of law that you can buy for yourself in terms of representation is another thing. And I just don't know. I don't know if it's as clear cut as people saying, oh, that's it, that's the end of the monarchy. I'm not sure, because there is that phrase, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? So there are ways that the king can own this moment, right? And it is tricky for us all. God rest her soul, the Queen gave him money. Well, it's reputed that she gave him between 7 to 12 million to avoid a court case with Virginia Giuffre. And listen, I'm not going to... Look, she was his mum. He was clearly the thickest one, right? It's a tale as old as time in any family that mothers are a bit soft. It's, like a bit soft for like... I bet he was always sit down and go, "Mummy dearest, I've messed up again." You know those mums that are a bit soft for one of their sons? And no matter what they did at school, like the mums would come back going, "Oh, he's just overstimulated. He's lively. The kids don't understand his creativity." I'm not going to, well, look, I mean... You've got to hold some accountability, but I find it very difficult to criticise the Queen. Call me old-fashioned.
What most people think.
So the issue for Andrew is because obviously this is connected to, the idea that he might have been guilty of misconduct in public office, right? But from the public's point of view, it comes in the slipstream of the whole Epstein thing, the disgraced paedophile. Could we just get a standard way, by the way, of referring to Jeffrey Epstein? Because obviously you now do a radio show and there's loads of different ways, right? There's the disgraced financier. You think disgraced financier just sounds like you gave bad mortgage advice. So notorious paedophile, that just sounds like you're giving him credit, going, "Fucking, boy, you smashed it, bro." Late paedophile, that was one of the weirdest ones. It's like the late Queen, the late paedophile. It's like he was a fucking poet laureate for nonsense. So just call him the paedophile, Jeffrey Epstein. And so what's happening with Andrew, even though he was arrested in relation to not stuff to do with sex trafficking or anything like that, the public kind of lump these things together. There's a tendency for that. And, I remember I was talking, I think this week, about Partygate. A lot of people will think that Boris Johnson lost his job because of Partygate. It certainly weakened him, but that wasn't it. And a lot of people think that the Conservative Party, like MPs and ministers, were fucking puking up the walls and playing shit music and having karaoke at Number 10. It wasn't. It was principally civil servants. But, there has been talk that with Andrew, with all the other concerns people have about his conduct, that this is a bit like Al Capone getting done for tax evasion. I mean, if he was charged and he did go to prison, it's just hard to conceive, isn't it? It is hard to conceive. I'm just thinking of those American films where they would go like, there'll be some really like weak ass guy and they'll go, "Right, this is your new cellmate," and it's some guy who's massive but just wants to do cuddles. "My name's Bubba," right? And I don't think this is the time to get rid of the monarchy. I think it's just getting interesting. We've got Charlie, trying to sort through this mess. We've got the next line. We've got the new cast lined up, Wills and Kate, right? Never let a good crisis go to waste. And, they've changed. Once upon a time, yes, they did visit, sites in London that had been bombed by the Nazis. But now, they do stupid shit and it amuses us. Okay, do you live in Wellingborough? I am in you on Saturday. I'm at the Wellingborough Castle. Do you live in Bedford? I am in you on Sunday at the Quarry Theatre, although that's pretty much sold out. Next week, though, Cheltenham Town Hall. I think we're at 85% there on Wednesday. High Wycombe Town Hall. From the floor plan, it looks like there are about 17 tickets left. The Saturday is sold out in Maidenhead. I think that's my third date in Maidenhead, big in Maidenhead. And then on Sunday, so if you came to Leamington Spa before, I did the small room. We've upgraded to the big room and there's I think there's 450 people there now. There's a few tickets left, so do come to that. And then after that, gigs include Carlisle, Southport, Crewe, Shrewsbury, Red Roof, going all the way to Cornwall. All those people that said to me, "Come to Cornwall, Jeff." If you don't come, I'll be fucking livid, all right? All that way. So get yourself on Live Nation and get some tickets. Okay, let's default to our more usual realm of interest here on this podcast. So the government, so the Monday and Tuesday they had, given last week, it was only last week that they almost fucking got rid of Keir Starmer. So you're probably thinking at Labour HQ, like, let's just start the week on an even keel. And by Tuesday lunchtime, I swear to God, they had a story swirling around, which I think we covered on the Patreon only this week, about snooping on journalists, right? About these Sunday Times journalists. Unemployment was up yet again. Then there was a U-turn on local elections. I did a tweet saying, it's only fucking Tuesday lunchtime, lads. Surely you've gone into this week going, no more fuck-ups, right? And I just sort of thought, right, as much as I take, a certain amount of pleasure climbing into a Labour Party, and it's not because I want them to fail. We can't afford that. It's just the hubris. I can never get over. The grown-ups are back at the room. But it's just not funny anymore, them being shit. It's just not funny, right? I did not vote Labour. Last election, I can't remember if I did not vote Labour, did not vote Tory. I voted for an independent at last election, right? I just thought I couldn't necessarily reward the Tories for how they've been. I felt that the Tories, the way they gave into public pressure, the extent of, certain lockdown stuff, there's no way I could vote for them, the last election. Never going to be a Labour voter, so that was where I felt. I voted for a local independent. But, I wanted Labour to do well. I thought they would do well, is the truth of it. That's the dirty secret, is I thought, well, they sound like they're going to be a bit Tory light. But it hasn't been anything like that from either a tax or governance perspective. I know Tories had their years of chaos. I was sort of thinking it would be a bit like the coalition years, but it has, there was been way more ministerial resignations and scandals with this government than there were with the coalition. And I know it's not cool to be a coalition guy, but I kind of enjoyed that period. So you kind of go, right, this ain't funny. They just need to get better. Because the point is they stared into the abyss with Starmer and they decided that they didn't have anybody better, which is kind of fucking depressing in its own way. Looked into Ed Miliband says we stared into the abyss. And I wonder if he meant by that Keir Starmer's eyes. But so we carry on. We continue like this. It's good. Labour being shit is good for my business, but it's not good for business. And then it just rolls on. You've got Donald Trump, who's now gone the other way on the Chagos deal again. And, I have no doubt that Trump is doing it for his own expedient reasons. I don't know, maybe at this point he looks tired at the moment, Donald. I don't know if he can actually remember what his most recent position is. But that doesn't change the fact that the Chagos deal there's a lot of people who criticise it. I heard a Labour peer on the radio, saying that it's hard to sort of justify the reasons for doing this. There was a court ruling, but you could challenge that court ruling. And it is hard for Labour with the Chagos deal because the pitch of it, and they haven't really pitched it to the public because I honestly think they didn't think anyone would give a shit. It's true to say that the Tories were looking into this, but it is also true to say that when Cameron, I think he had, by the way, I'm going to say again, another controversial opinion. Cameron as Foreign Secretary should have stayed on. He was fucking smashing it, Dave. Come back, DC. Back in the building. But he kiboshed it for the time being, right? So Labour have to own this because they're signing off on it. And they are struggling to sell the idea that we are giving it away to make us safe because people just won't process that. So you're giving away a place to make us safer. And we're going to pay for the privilege. But then they're trying to dispute the cost. So they're saying it'd only be 0.2% of our defence spending. Well, that's a useful way of framing it. But only last week, when the economy grew by 0.1%, right, you were saying that was significant. So 0.2% is a significant figure of a budget of billions. And, Trump is fucking manoeuvring. And, there are reports that he wants to use it to launch strikes from Iran if he has to and use parts of the UK. And Starmer is kind of pushing back. Maybe Starmer, Keir's finally growing a little set of Tic Tacs down there. But, Trump also said that, Britain as a, what was it? We've given in to the armies of wokeness. I would say that, I know that our military is depleted, but I'd say a war with the armies of wokeness. I think that is one war we might win. But the government have sort of benefited as the week's gone on through the journalists just moving on. This whole thing about snooping has kind of gone away for a while. Maybe the U-turn on local elections might come back when the cost of it is made clear. I don't know. But the journos have moved on because it's all about Andrew. And then the government have this news today, as I'm recording it at lunchtime on Friday, the 20th of February, that there's a surplus, a record surplus in January of £30 billion, right? which one? All good news is welcome. I would say it's quite likely to have a surplus when you tax the shit out of everybody. Eventually, if you keep just taking more money off people for stuff, you're going to have more money yourself. Also inflation is always swells the government coffers, right? The government, I think they had the kind of windfalls during the cost of living crisis because inflation just makes everything more expensive and naturally their tax receipts go up and inflation did tick up. They've had their own good news where they said that inflation has gone down, but it went back up under you. It's quite a hard picture, isn't it, to say, the thing that had gone down, but then we made it go back up. Well, we've brought it back down again. It didn't go up by loads, but it hasn't come down by loads. But they've certainly benefited from it. But the question is, what are they going to do with the money, right? They can boast about it. I've got my hunches that what they would do with the money is nothing for business. They could reverse the NI hike, but that would be so embarrassing for them. They just won't do it, even if it would stimulate exactly the kind of jobs growth we need and save money off the welfare bill and address the fact that we've got loads of young people who are not in education, employment or training, but they just won't do it because actually it's probably the U-turn they should do the most, but it will be the most embarrassing and it would just point to all that fucking wasted time in business. What would they do with the money? Would they do a corporation tax cut? That might stimulate growth. Of course not, because they'd see it as, a tax cut for billionaires, because they've said that in the past. Yeah. What would they do? Would they cut income tax? Absolutely not, right? The spring statement's coming up. They're not going to do that. Here's a theory. What they're going to do is just they're going to use it as a buffer zone to allow all their extra spending on public services, right, which a lot of people welcome, but also welfare, to keep spiralling, right? And they won't take anything on. And even with SEND this week, the absolute sort of mammoth rise in the amount of kids needing extra help, right? To look at, how much of that is, how that can be tempered, how much of it is legitimate. But immediately the backbenchers are like, we're not having any of that. And that Labour are going to lose that fight. I think what Labour, that'll be another U-turn. What Labour have got to do to avoid U-turns is stop saying that they have policies, right? Just start saying, call it an opening position. We're just going in there, we're just floating this one. Just stop saying you have a policy, because every single thing you U-turn on, other than the things that you need to U-turn on. Chat a little bit about reform now. They announced their shadow cabinet this week. Can't have a shadow cabinet until you're in the shadow, Nigel. With the shadow cabinet, because the Tories are finished. I say again, it is weird where you got Labour and Reform saying the Tories are finished when there's from a polling point of view, there's sometimes as little as 6 points in it. It's just a bit weird. But he announces his shadow cabinet because, he likes to keep in the news, Nigel. You don't sit there eating kangaroo bollocks on I'm a Celebrity if you don't like, having a camera on you. And Nigel loves people looking at him. And it was all very pizzazz, wasn't it? Very pizzazz. And he unveils Robert Jenrick as his Chancellor. It's a bit like fantasy football at this point because, you're not the opposition yet and you're not the government yet. But hey, it's fun to call yourself names, right? It reminds me of when I worked in advertising and there was a company that suddenly upgraded everyone to be called director, which made the term director meaningless. And then there was super director. Jenrick, the Chancellor, Suella in education. So these are obviously the price of their defection. This is what they must have had agreed as deals. Zia Youssef, Home Office, right, stuff. Again, I will say, when are we going to have a white male guy in the Home Office, hey? Come on, when do we get our turn? 16 years now, and all we've had is Grant Shapps for 16 days. When are us white guys going to smash that ceiling, that glass ceiling? Richard Tyson business. I mean, there must be some noses out of joint there. Lee Anderson, a good man of the East Midlands himself, he'll probably be thinking, what's that about? Fucking what's that about? As a reformer, I defected before. It's almost like saying I stole it first. Because he defected from Labour to Tories to Reform. There is some talk that maybe people are going to defect again, people like Sarah Pochin and Lee Anderson over to this Rupert Lowe thing, which I'm sorry, I know that there's a lot of people that are really into this Restore Britain thing. First, I'm going to say some of the toxicity from those followers online, and this is just in the online world, I've got no idea how it manifests outside of that. like nothing I've seen on X. Do you know what I mean? Like people who are quite significantly to the right in Britain are getting called fucking woke because they don't support bringing back the death penalty. And when Elon Musk retweets everything you post, it is just a chance that it might be performing disproportionately well in the online space. And it was interesting because Jenrick was asked about the 2-child cap. Because remember, Nigel Farage was actually in favour of abolishing it and then bringing it back. So when Jenrick was asked about it, as essentially a Tory that he is, you know what he's going to answer. So Farage butts in and goes, I think I'd quite like to answer for Robert on this one. And it was a little bit of, when an old-fashioned bloke's out with his missus and he's like, she'll have the risotto. So where was I? But look, it's fair to say that Jenrick did do his own announcement to the city later in the week, which we'll come to. But, I do think that, it was a cheeky move to say this is the shadow cabinet, but it also was like underlined that maybe Reform do have like more visible personalities, people that the public can understand who they are. Like I was left thinking about who are the Tories? Kemi Badenoch, yes, she's got cut through. Yes, she does well when set against other leaders. But Mel Stride is the shadow chancellor, Robert, right? But no one's looking at him. I mean, he does stuff online. He lays out very detailed and convincing and frankly fucking accurate sort of dissertations on where we're at economically. But no one's looking at him. And then you go, who else there? Priti Patel, a bit of the old guard. Who else is there? This is the problem. This is why Farage has done it. He's assembled, like visible personalities around him. And as I say, Robert Jenrick did do his little thing to the city later in the week, which just sounded like straight up conservatism. And George Osborne slightly threw him in the shit a little bit by revealing on his podcast that Robert Jenrick had sort of said, I hope you like it. He sent him a message saying, I don't know if you saw my speech to the city. I hope you like it. I mean, if anything suggests that your party, which is supposed to be the antidote to the Tories, is becoming a bit Tory, is having a bloke that was recently a Tory asking another Tory whether he approves of his speech. Okay, that is the breaking news episode for this week. As ever, if you're a patron, let me know what you think. You can always email me whatmostpeoplethinkuk@gmail.com. Also, leave reviews wherever you can. I can access the ones on Apple Podcasts, so I'll read out all the 5-star ones. Isabel says, I've listened to this podcast for many years now. I love Jeff's approach to politics and his views usually align with mine. Worth listening for his Keir Starmer impression alone. 1 week ago, Easy Fox, he gave me a review. Jeff Norcott must be one of the hardest working comedians in Britain. How he manages to put out these high quality podcasts twice a week, roam around the country trying to make people laugh in his shows and make appearances on broadcast media is beyond me. Yeah, I mean, look, 50 later this year. I love doing it, but I am finding that I need the odd nap. Somebody gave me a 4-star review, but was asking why Jonathan Pye was on. Tom Walker, he's been on like since I started the podcast, like at least twice a year. So, I mean, if you're honestly asking the question of him being on, is that those episodes do pretty much like the best for numbers out of the year. I'm not just saying that's the only reason I do it. I think I like the conversations that I have with some, but that's the point about this podcast. All the other ones, right? They're like the same two people talking every week. This week is this podcast is a bit of a mystery box, and I've doubled down on the principle that we're not going to just sit in our echo chambers. But look, if one guest isn't your cup of tea, then hopefully stick around because there'll be one coming on soon that you will like. And I hope you all have a fantastic weekend, and just spare a thought for those of us that were once second in line to the phone. That are sitting there eating fucking prison food.